Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. How many of you among my audience have ever heard stories about being related to Billy the Kid, Jesse James, Pocahontas, or some other notable or historical figure? Now, how many of you can substantiate that story? Well, I'm Rachel Frederick, and I'm here today to help you separate genealogical fact from fiction by creating a short family tree. So where to begin? First, ask your oldest living relative, as they can provide us with a wealth of genealogical information despite the tall tales, and they are usually delighted to talk to us about their parents, grandparents, siblings, and other relatives. And despite the prevailing belief that our elders are forgetful because they might leave the stove on or forget their keys, family details are so ingrained in us throughout our lives that they are usually among the last things that we forget. Our elders can also provide us with birth certificates, death certificates, marriage license, etc., and colorful anecdotes that you just can't get from an old photograph or a census sheet. For instance, my great-grandparents were married in the middle of the road. To avoid a chivalry or an old-fashioned prank where the wedding party had decided to kidnap the bride before the wedding. So this wonderful detail would have been lost had I not had the foresight to ask my great-grandmother. So don't hesitate to ask for this information. It's free, it's reliable, and it's readily available. However, it is also time sensitive because our elders are, well, elders. You know, so don't hesitate, because once this information is gone, it's gone. Take notes, recordings, and be specific in your questioning. For instance, I knew my family was from Tennessee, but I neglected to ask where in Tennessee. And Tennessee is a big place. So my search was frustrated for many years after my great-grandmother died, before I was able to answer that question for myself. And this is important because prior to the advent of the automobile, very few people traveled very far from their place of birth or from their families. And thus a single county can yield a century or more of genealogical information. Also be specific when obtaining names. There are a lot of John Smiths out there. And a lot of people, myself included, go by a middle name. People go by a nickname. And many Bibles, census sheets, and other historical documents contain one or the other, but not both. And many formal documents only contain initials. So the more information that you have, the more luck you will have in sorting out who's who from who's not. Okay, so let's say you've grilled Granny, and you have a few names, dates, and places. Where do you go from here? You have to work backwards, connecting information that you already know to be true with information about, suppose your grandmother, you would use her information, birth date, place of birth, etc., and connect that to her family names. If you know that your family has lived in the same area for several generations, then your best place to start would be at your local library or genealogical society. They can provide you with tax lists, census sheets, obituaries, and other useful documents. Obituaries are important because they list not only the person, but they list their parents, their spouse, and their children, and their place of burial. And this is important because often generations of families are buried together in the same cemetery. And so once you have that information, it becomes easy to connect the dots. You can use that information to apply for death certificates from the state for a fee. Once you have the name, and this has the names of the decedent spouses, parents, county, cause of death, and a lot of useful information. Now, if like me, you drive from another part of the country, there are innumerable online websites which list a wealth of genealogical information. Ancestry.com, for example, is a popular site. However, Ancestry.com and others like it charge a fee ranging from $25 a month to $300 a year. And while many of them offer free trial services, these free trials are easy to get, but they often require use of your credit card information. Now, in my experience, it's difficult to cancel if you decide not to subscribe. So start early if you decide to cancel your subscription. In addition, there are many searchable websites offering much the same information for free. Some of my favorites are myfamilysearch.org and the US Gen Web Census Project. Both offer searchable database of wills, tax lists, death certificates, photographs, and census sheets, which identify not only the person that you seek, but also all those living in the household. They also offer information such as birth dates, marital status, number of children born, number of children living, and education for each person. So, and they become useful when you discover that a person listed on a 1910 census and absent on a 1920 indicates that either that person married or possibly died before the next census was taken. And so your next logical step would be to search local marriage records and mortuary schedules for that area. The Social Security Death Index is also useful for researching people who applied for a Social Security number after 1935 because it provides a date of death, last known residence, last known issue, state of death, and help you narrow your search. While this all may sound like it's easier said than done, I can assure you with just a few names and dates, in this age of technology, you can get great results. For example, I bought this antique photograph at auction. Written on the back is an inscription which says, David Buffett, father of Chaz, Clyde, Valletta, and David, killed by a fallen tree when only 27 years old. Now, using that information, I searched the internet very quickly, and I used the most uncommon name, Valletta, and I quickly located an internet site with all the names on the back of the photograph. So I contacted the website's operator, and he was delighted to know about the photograph, which he didn't know existed, and he's coming next week to pick it up. So don't be discouraged if you don't have a lot of information. A little bit can go a long way, and it can help you sort out who's who from who's not, and you're sure to find a noteworthy figure in your family tree, because as Helen Keller once said, there is no king who has not had a slave among his ancestors, and no slave who's not had a king among his. So, however, if you get into the early 1800s and you don't find a trace of Billy the Kid or Jesse James, then you're probably not related. So, better luck with Pocahontas. Thank you.
Didn't Helen Keller say,
That's not very nice.
We're not done yet.
Okay, my first impression, I think my strengths are that my delivery starts out well. I think I have pretty good inflection. My weakness is that I progressively stumble. My suggestion for improvement would be that I tend to do the Stevie Wonder, and I think I need to try to control that. Thank you. Okay, I don't know how to stop it.
I don't either.